So this story begins on a rainy day where we can see a girl walking down the street in extreme fear. Actually, a man was following this girl from behind. That's why she was moving forward in terror. She slowly makes her way into an old building where there was an old church. Actually, this girl always used to come to this church. And this girl's name was Ayoung. But then from behind we can see a woman notices that a man is following this girl. That's why she starts following that man. After that, when the prayer starts inside the church, we can see Ayoung sits on a nearby seat and starts praying. And while following her, that man also came inside the church. And he also sits here and starts praying. And when the prayer ends, Ayoung tells her friend that this man has been following me for a long time. But we can see her friend starts laughing. And she wasn't taking the matter seriously at all. But when they leave from there, that man also follows them and tries to leave from there. But right then the church's priest Min-chan comes in front of him. And he smilingly asks this man if he's new to this church. Then that man says, "Yes, I'm new here. But I'm in a bit of a hurry, I need to go." But when the priest offers him coffee, he still tries to leave from there. But due to the priest's insistence, he's finally forced to stay here for coffee. And then on the other side, Ayoung and her friend come to a supermarket. When they were trying to buy some things and head back, they bump into that woman whom we saw at the beginning of the story. We can see this woman was also in extreme fear. That's why she was taking medicine to keep herself under control. On the other hand, priest Min-chan brings a dress for that man from the church. We learn that man lives nearby. And his name is Young-rae. Here the man tells the priest that when I was little, I used to come to church sometimes. After hearing this, the priest tells him that yes, when people come to church regularly as children, they stay very close to God. But as they grow older, they drift further away from God and stop coming to church. But as age increases, at some point they start coming to church again. Actually, time always gives you a sign which, if followed, can bring you close to God again. And we can see when all these conversations were happening, that man was repeatedly watching the water drops falling from the ceiling, and he was observing everything around him very carefully. But then the priest smiles and tells him, "Here's a form, fill it out and I'll take your picture. I'll print this." While saying this, he also clicks the picture and prints it out. And he says, "I've also deleted it from my phone." Actually, he wanted to make this man a new member of the church. But when Young-rae sees these things, he gets a bit too angry. But right then, the priest receives a call. So he goes outside to talk. But then Young-rae's attention falls on the photos of the priest's wife and child kept on his table. He was looking at them very carefully with attention. On the other hand, the priest was called by his hired personal detective. Actually, he had hired the detective to keep surveillance on his wife. And now the detective tells him, "We've collected a lot of information about your wife. Actually, your wife is having an affair with her personal trainer." And he sends him a picture of them kissing. And he says they also go to hotels sometimes. "If you need anything more, please let me know." But this was enough for the priest. After seeing this much, he went into trauma. So he quickly cuts the call. But when he comes inside, he can see Young-rae trying to leave from there. And he's asking for his shoes. So the priest himself tries to put the shoes on him. But then he can see there's a tracker attached to his leg. Actually, these trackers are put on those people who have recently been released from prison. I mean, this is attached to monitor their activities. After seeing this, he tells the priest, "May God help you. God loves all his children in exactly the same way. He doesn't show less compassion for anyone." But Young-rae tells him this and leaves, saying, "I've filled out the form." But when the priest goes to check, he sees the form is lying completely blank. And as soon as he comes outside, Young-rae's attention falls on that woman whom we saw at the beginning of the story. They make eye contact. But Young-rae leaves from there on his own way. After that, when the priest was driving back home with his wife tells him, "Drop me off on the road. I have some work at the office. I need to finish that work and come home. Until then, you pick up our child from school." But we can see the priest's heart was completely broken. Because they both together used to handle all the church matters. And they were a very religious family. But now his wife is cheating on him, which was completely sinful. But then they see a poster from a nearby construction site and realize that a huge church is being built. So his wife tells him, "You could go and talk to the head priest. If you talk to him, maybe he could make you the priest of this big church. Because you helped him a lot. Now he could help you a little." And then on the other side, we can see the woman we saw at the beginning of the movie was actually a police officer. Actually, she was first a member of the crime unit. But now her unit has been changed. And in this joy, her father organizes a party at home. He fills the table with food. But when the father and daughter were eating, her father warns her and says please try to keep yourself careful. Because Yang-rae has been released from prison. I don't want to lose you now. But after hearing this woman falls into extreme tension. And then we can see in their family photo, there was also a picture of her sister with her. Actually, maybe that sister had died. After that, priest Min-chan comes to meet the head priest John. Actually, the head priest John had all the information about the big church that was being built, and he also decided who would be the priest there later. That's why he came here, so that something could work out for him. So he tries to convince him by saying I've been working with you for a long time. So see if you can make me the priest of that church. Besides, I've also registered a new member. But after hearing this, priest John laughs a little and tells him we only deliver God's message to people. How many members you registered doesn't matter at all. And for the new big church that's being built, who can be given as priest? I mean, if you have any name in mind, let me know. I mean, we can understand that priest John wasn't considering him as the priest there. So feeling very disappointed, when he comes out from priest John's house, he can see priest John's son coming with 2 girls. Actually, his name was Yun Woo. He asks him, have you received this news that a big church is being built in your area? All the big people want me to be the priest there. But I don't have much experience. Then priest Min-chan tells him your father was asking me for advice about who he should give as the priest there. Whether I have any name in mind. Then he says, why is father asking you for advice? You are the best. You should be made the priest there. And saying this, he takes his 2 girlfriends and leaves from there. And after seeing him, priest Min-chan clearly understands that actually nepotism was going on here. Because this boy is not worthy of being a priest at all. Besides, he's always busy with girls. He likes to hang around with girls. After that, Pastor Min-chan becomes extremely upset and comes to his church. And here he starts praying to God. He was telling him that keep me away from all greed and lust, and give me the courage so that I can deliver your message to everyone. Also, give me a hint about whether I'm worthy of becoming the pastor of that big church, so that I can get an idea about my worthiness. But then we can see his wife calls him, and she asks him, where is our son? I can't find him anywhere. Actually, then we learn that Pastor Min-chan had completely forgotten that he needed to pick up his son from school. That's why his wife says someone has kidnapped him. I can't find him anywhere. Then Min-chan tells her there's no real reason to panic. You run to the school and check. I'll check all around the neighborhood. And then his suspicion falls on Yang-rae. And here, Yang-rae's photo that he had printed looked like a villain's photo because water had fallen on it. So when he does research, he learns that Yang-rae had actually served almost 5 years in prison for a molestation case and had come out. He had been released just a few days ago. That's why he becomes extremely scared about his son, because maybe Yang-rae had kidnapped his son. So he finds Yang-rae's home address from that website and quickly heads out toward his house. Meanwhile, we can see that police officer lady becomes extremely upset thinking about her sister. Actually, 5 years ago from today, Yang-rae had kidnapped her sister and taken her away. And he had done various physical and mental torture on her. Even though she was a police officer, she couldn't find her sister in any way. And she couldn't save her sister in the end either. And because of all these things, she would always remain upset. And she would repeatedly blame herself. And then we can see a ghost of her sister comes in front of her. And she tells her that I was always hoping that somehow you would find me. But actually that never happened. I would always look toward the door with hope that at some point you would open the door and come inside. But repeatedly, that devil would open the door and come inside. Actually, we learn that this officer had bought a new apartment, and in this apartment, all these things are happening to her now. And now thinking about all these things, she herself had gone into a trauma. Meanwhile, Pastor Min-chan arrives in front of Yang-rae's house. And he can see Yang-rae was trying to dig a hole with something. He was trying to bury something. After seeing this, the pastor becomes suspicious of him. So he quickly calls the police and tells them to come here. He says my son has gone missing. I suspect Yang-rae has killed my son. Now he's at his house. So quickly send police force there. But just then a lightning strikes here. As if Yang-rae becomes suspicious of this car. And the pastor somehow hides inside the car. But that police officer also cuts the call because he didn't believe the pastor's words at all. But after that, when Yang-rae was fleeing from there with his car, the pastor was also following him from behind. But at one point, suddenly Yang-rae's car disappears somewhere. The pastor couldn't find his car at all. And just then we can see Yang-rae's car comes out from behind the pastor's car. Actually, Yang-rae had also understood this thing now that maybe someone was following him. That's why he used that technique, and when the pastor stops the car, then suddenly Yang Rui comes near the car window and tells him, "Pastor, what are you doing here? Are you following me or what?" And after hearing this, the pastor's suspicion of him increases even more. So he gets out of the car and quickly goes and checks Yang Rui's car. But actually here he doesn't find anyone. But right after that, when he checks his ankle, then he can see that tracker had disappeared from his ankle. I mean, he had removed it and thrown it away. After seeing this, the pastor becomes extremely scared and tries to flee from there for his life. Because removing that tracker means Yang Rui is going to commit some crime. But before he could start the car and flee, Yang Rui comes and catches him. And a fight starts between the two of them. Although the pastor couldn't match Yang Rui at all. But when the pastor throws a hard punch, then by mistake Yang Rui falls straight down from the cliff. Because of which he gets severely injured. And he dies right there. Now after seeing all these things, the pastor had already gone into trauma. But on top of that, his wife calls him and informs him that their son has been found. Actually, he had gone to his friend's house. And he had forgotten to call and inform his friend's father because it would disturb his play. And after hearing this, Yang Rui gets even more tense. Because now he has killed an innocent man who maybe had no sin at all. But just then the pastor can see lightning flashing in the sky where there was a face like Yang Rui's face. And since Yang Rui was now wearing that church dress, considering this as God's sign, he throws Yang Rui's body into the hole. But before throwing it into the hole, he removes the church shirt from Yang Rui's body. After that, when that officer lady comes and joins duty in the morning, an officer comes and welcomes her because from now on they will both work together, and then they go to the meeting room for a meeting. Here we learn that actually they were researching last night's case. Actually, when the pastor had called the police, exactly an hour before that, Ayoung had disappeared, and everyone's suspicion had fallen on Yang Rui. That's why they start researching about Yang Rui. And after seeing all these things, that police officer lady's old memories come back again. And then when they go and search Yang Rui's room, they find some strange signs here. Like they can see a one-eyed monster. Meanwhile, when Pastor Minchan was just thinking about making a confession, the police come to interrogate him. And their attention falls on the pastor's dirty shoes and that church dress on Yang Rui's body, which had also gotten dirty. But the pastor deflects the conversation by saying, "I found my son. He had gone to his friend's house yesterday. But later he came back on his own. That's why I just came back from there. After that I didn't see Yang Rui either." But then the police tell him that a girl named Ayoung, who always used to come to your church, has also disappeared since last night. And after hearing this, the pastor becomes very shocked, because he didn't know about this either. So the police tell him, "If you get any information about her, please let us know." After that, when Pastor Minchan was trying to message Priest John to confess about the matters, Priest John's message came to his phone instead. He was telling him to come to the church quickly. "I need to talk to you face to face." And going there, he learns that another incident was happening here. He says that actually my son got caught cheating yesterday. Actually, he got married recently. I can't understand why he did such a thing. And for all these incidents, instead of blaming his son, he put all the blame on that girl. That girl seduced and led his son down the wrong path. He spread these things among everyone. Besides, he spread all these things about his son on the church website. Now he has somehow saved his son's honor, but since the incident has spread everywhere, even if he wanted, he can't make his son the priest of that big church. So he has decided to send his son abroad for missionary work. And now he was under tremendous stress, because he couldn't understand whom to make the priest of that big church. So after much thought, he tells the pastor, "Would you like to take responsibility for that church? Because I think you are the only qualified priest to whom I can entrust the responsibility of that big church." And after hearing all these things, Pastor Minchan becomes completely stunned. Actually, he couldn't understand how everything happened. So he was thinking maybe God gave this to him, and he should accept it. That's why he says yes. I mean, he was thinking that God brought him through all these events to this point. God wanted him to kill a demon like Quan with his own hands, and later gave him this position as a gift. We can understand that he justifies his evil deeds as God's will. Meanwhile, the police bring a doctor to examine Quan's scratches, and when that female police officer sees the doctor, her head gets really heated. And then we go back to the past. Actually, we can see her sister's case in the past. We learn that despite all that torture, her sister survived somehow in the end, and she caught Quan and brought him all the way to court. But then the doctor came and told them that Quan was not mentally fit at all. Actually, because of all his father's childhood torture, Kwon has become like this now. There was actually a broken mark in his spine. That mark proves that his father mentally, physically, and sexually abused him since childhood. And he endured all these things for a full 10 years, starting from just 6 years old. When he turned 16, he went to jail for the first time for an assault case. That's why the doctor says it's not necessary that everyone who faces abuse from childhood will become such a terrorist when they grow up. But when you can't treat someone in time, it will definitely have an impact on them. And maybe this is the biggest reason behind Kwon's crimes. We can see that her sister was very scared after seeing Kwon. Even one look at his face would terrify her. Although the police officer opposed all these matters and started shouting in the courtroom, she was forcibly removed from there. After seeing all these things, Kwon was standing at a distance and laughing. Then, finally, many years later, the officer went to face that doctor. She asked him, "Do you recognize me? I'm also that girl's sister, who had to die because of your testimony. Actually, Kwon's brutal torture couldn't kill my sister. But only your one testimony broke my sister from the inside. But the doctor says this is my job. Treating mental patients and studying them is my responsibility. So I only performed my duty. Yes, I know that since you're a member of the victim's family, maybe that's why you're thinking like this. But if you think emotionally like this, you'll never be able to fulfill your office duties, because you're a police officer. You need to think with your brain and solve matters." But then the officer tells him that you're not at all responsible for an animal like Kwon getting out. Only you are responsible. You deliberately testified in his favor and got him released. But then the doctor says Kwon is not an animal. He's just an ordinary person who went into trauma from childhood. If he had been treated properly, maybe he could have gotten better too. But then this officer says that when you testified in his favor, social media started talking about it. Everyone started showing sympathy for Kwon. Everyone started thinking he was innocent. And all these things were very painful for my sister. That's why at one point she ended herself. Meanwhile, we can see Ayoung's mother comes crying to Priest Song, and they both go inside and start praying. Actually, Priest Minchon was comforting the girl's mother, saying don't worry at all, we will definitely find your daughter. After that, when Ayoung's mother was driving back home, she gets a call. She learns that Kwon's car has been found. And here the police also get CCTV footage, where we can see Kwon breaking all the CCTV cameras in his area one by one. These were scenes from before the priest came to him. And then they all come to that car. Actually, Kwon's car was found near the mountains. But they couldn't find his body. This is why that female officer's suspicion falls on Priest Minchon. Because she had seen similar dirt on his clothes too. And besides, the fear in his face was giving her a different signal. Then we can see Priest Minchon starts going with his wife, Misu, to a nursing home. Normally they never went to the nursing home. But before going, this time Priest Song asks his wife if there's anything you're trying to hide from me? Then his wife Mrs. says no, there's nothing like that. But Priest Minchon tells her to think once more. Actually, I've now become the priest of the new church. Priest John's son committed a big crime. He cheated on his partner. That's why for such a big sin, this position was given to me. Now you think and tell me if you've committed any sin. We can see his wife Mrs. starts crying and confesses all these things, that she cheated on her husband. She was in love with another man. She says these things screaming. But then Priest Minchon tells her that asking for my forgiveness won't help. Try asking God for forgiveness. Then while leaving, he finds an ambulance on the road that had broken down a little. So when he tries to help, they were saying the mechanic might be on the way. You can leave, we'll be going soon. And then when he comes to the nursing home, he learns that last night a patient came here in a very injured condition. Actually, maybe he fell from a nearby mountain, and that's how this happened. He somehow risked his life to come this far. And an ambulance was called to take him to the big hospital, which might be on the road. After hearing this, the priest gets very scared. And when he goes upstairs to check, here he finds Kwon, who was at death's door. And he kept saying that priest tried to kill me. And after hearing this, the priest gets very scared. But then through a signal he sees in the sky, he understands that maybe this is God's sign. That's why he kidnaps Kwon and takes him to another place. But an elderly patient next to them sees everything. And when the police come and learn that Kwon has been kidnapped, they interrogate that patient next to him. But then he tells them that God came and took him away. Actually, this man didn't believe in church at all. But later he also says amen. Maybe to indicate that a priest took him away from there. Meanwhile, that female officer can see many women standing here praying. So when she asks the doctor who are they, then the doctor says these are priests' wives. So this lady says, all right, give me all the priests' addresses. Maybe someone among them did this job. On the other hand, the priest ties Kwon up in a place and tells him that God chose me to kill you. Although you survived the first time, but this time you won't survive. This time I will definitely kill you. But after seeing this, Kwon understands that maybe the priest has gone crazy. So he says that if you kill me, then you'll never get news about Aeyong. So the priest beats him up badly so that he tells him about Aeyong. But even after getting beaten so much, Kwon wouldn't open his mouth at all. He was saying, call the police. I'll tell them everything. Meanwhile, in the evening the church people decided to pray for Aeyong. So Priest Song comes there, and they all together start praying for Aeyong. And then that female officer also comes here, and after seeing the mountain dirt on the priest's car, she searches the surrounding mountains on Google, and finds them. And finally she comes to that mountain. Meanwhile, when Priest Minchon was praying, that female officer reaches Kwon. And when she was trying to take Kwon away, her sister's ghost appears in front of her and reminds her that you said you would definitely avenge my death. Now will you let this animal go even after getting him so close? Will you let him go free like this? Now after hearing these things, this female officer also gets very tense because she couldn't understand what to do now. If she kills Kwon now, then she'll never be able to find out about Aeyong. And if she doesn't kill Kwon now and takes him to her fellow police officers, then maybe he can get out of jail again using mental health excuses. So she couldn't understand what to do. And then Kwon also regains consciousness. But then from behind, Priest Minchon comes and hits the officer on the head, knocking her unconscious. I mean, now she's also become a hostage. When she regains consciousness, she can see that she's tied to a chair. And we can see Priest Song tells them all that I was thinking about what I would do with his body after killing him. Actually, everything is God's will. Now God has made everything clear. I'll say the officer shot and killed Kwon to take her revenge. Later, she jumped from the roof and committed suicide. But then the officer asks him what will happen to Aeyong. Then the priest says Aeyong is dead. That's why I'll kill him and take revenge for this. But in the middle of all these things, suddenly a fight starts between the officer and Kwon. Kwon was telling her that I didn't kill your sister. I also endured torture from childhood, but I never committed suicide. Then why did your sister go and commit suicide? But this female officer requests the priest not to kill Kwon, because if he's killed, they'll never get news about Aeyong again. But the priest tells her that Aeyong is dead, and I can never let him go free. God gave me a sign. God can never give wrong signs. But after hearing these things, Kwon starts saying what kind of place made this mental patient a priest? After hearing this, the priest's head gets very heated. But somehow the female officer tries to calm them down. But then we can see suddenly the priest starts praying, meaning now he might actually kill Kwon. But then when the priest was about to shoot Kwon, somehow the officer frees herself and pushes him away, because of which a fight starts between the two of them. And in this fight, the officer uses technique and puts handcuffs on the pastor's hands. But in this scuffle, suddenly Yongrae starts falling down. So the officer catches him at the last moment. But she didn't have enough strength to pull him up. And after seeing all these things, Yongrae tells her at the last moment that actually Aeyong is with the one-eyed monster. After saying this, he falls down and dies. By now, the other police had also arrived here. So they come and quickly arrest the pastor. And later during interrogation, he kept saying repeatedly that all these things were God's will. It was by God's will that I went to kill him. Now the officer clearly understands that maybe Aeyong is imprisoned in that place where Yongrae used to work after getting out of prison. Actually, this place was a very big place. On top of that, Aeyong had been kidnapped for 2 days. I mean, she maybe didn't get anything to eat or drink. And searching this entire place would take a full 5 days, which means her survival is not possible at all. She would probably have to die without food. Meanwhile, when the officer comes to the doctor to search for the one-eyed monster, what the doctor tells her actually connects all three of them, the pastor, Yongrae, and herself, in one place. The doctor tells her she has such a condition through which she finds various signs through random things. And through those signs, she takes new actions. Then the officer was looking at Yongrae's childhood drawings. And here the doctor explains and tells her everything. He tells her that when Yongrae was being tortured, his mother would pray in front of him so that he wouldn't be tortured anymore. That's why he was attached to the church from childhood. And besides, maybe this one-eyed monster could be his father, or he himself could be. The people around that you can see were maybe his victims, or he himself was one of them. Now, although all these things are just a theory, They understood very well that where A-Yong is being held captive is maybe connected to Yang-Rei's childhood, and just then the officer can see her sister's ghost, so she starts taking medicine, and when the doctor can see her taking medicine, he offers her water and says, "You can see a vision, can't you?" Then the officer says that yes, I can see my sister's vision, who kept coming to me and saying that she had hoped I would save her, but I wasn't able to save her. That's why I'm always stressed about this. But the doctor tells her that all these things are actually nothing. This is just an illusion you've created in your own mind. Then the officer says that yes, I know this very well. But how can I escape from this? The reality is that I couldn't save my sister. And besides, now the same things that happened to my sister are happening to A-Yong. I won't be able to forgive myself for this incident either. And then the doctor tells her that all these acts for Cowan were done for the one-eyed monster. The priest was saying he did all these things at God's command. And you're saying you're doing all these things for your sister's soul. Actually, even though all these matters seem different, they all connect at one point. Actually, you all always decide to move forward with an illusion created in your own minds. The reason behind each tragedy is normally different. All these demons, monsters, God, these are just justifications to cover our sins. Nothing more than that. But then the officer asks her, "Where will I find A-Yong?" Then the doctor tells her to find her in a place that's connected to reality, not to your thoughts. And when the officer was trying to leave from there, the doctor tells her to try to figure out this thing. What was it that reminded her of her past memories again? And she was forced to do all these tortures again. And then on this side, we can see a house being demolished with a bulldozer. And that girl named A-Yong was imprisoned inside this very house. On the other hand, when the officer was looking closely at the drawing, she couldn't understand anything. And then her father calls her and says that I've taken on a new construction job, where the client doesn't want the round door at all. And her father also sends her a picture. And after seeing this picture, everything becomes clear to the officer. Actually, the one-eyed monster was nothing else. It was this house's round window, which looked like an eye. Actually, these windows were very common in all houses back then. And we can see there was such a window in the officer's apartment too. This very thing attracted him to join crime again. Actually, his father used to torture him near such a window since childhood. That's why whenever Cowan saw such a window, he would go crazy. So to take revenge for the torture he suffered, he started torturing others. Now after knowing all these things, the officer quickly informs her colleagues. And she herself sets out to save A-Yong. And she saves A-Yong before the house breaks down and A-Yong dies. And here when A-Yong tells her that I was hoping that someone would come through that door and would definitely save me, then the officer becomes completely emotional. Actually, her sister always used to tell her this same thing. Maybe her trauma ended here. Her trauma wasn't about taking revenge, though. But the regret of not being able to save her sister was always in her mind. After this, the officer goes and meets with the priest and informs him that A-Yong is alive. But the priest says that this can't happen. God can't give me wrong signals in any way. Saying this, he goes from there and starts praying. But later he starts erasing everything. And this thing was perhaps indicating to us that his obsession has now completely ended. He has now understood everything. And at such an interesting point, this entire movie ends right here.